There has been a rise in the conversation and content around decentering men, and the reasons of it are various. I mean, where do we begin? We could talk about the dismal dating pool, misogyny, sexism, rising incel, red pill content, and the community, gender wars. You know, all of these things have created this conversation or have been a part of the conversation when it comes to women decentering men. However, as a result of the outcome of this election we just had in America, there is a backlash growing right now on social media as it pertains to the 4B movement. And my question is this just something that is trending, you know, an emotional response and a backlash, a protest against the elections? Or is this something that will last here in America? Aloha, welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome back if we've been locked in. My name is Sasha, and today we are talking about the 4B movement coming to America. Before we get into that though, and like breaking down what the 4B movement is, there is this idea in fashion that fashion recycles itself every 20 years or so. And I think that can be attributed to certain cultural norms, societal norms, standards that we are having, you know, this counterculture protest against the norms that we have, and a pendulum swing back to the opposite side. As an older millennial, I came up in a culture and in a time of hookup culture, women casually dating, you know, Sex in the City, women having rosters, I'm single until I'm married. So women are, you know, constantly dating, and we have had this almost reawakening, this sexual reawakening, reclaiming our power, reclaiming our rights to our body, that we saw that uptick in the 60s and the 70s. And then we saw that uptick again in the 90s. And we saw that uptick in the 90s last through the 2000s. However, over the past few months, maybe years at this point, like 2 or 3-ish years, especially over Coviana, when everybody was sitting down and their butts were at home and they had no choice but to be sitting there scrolling on social media, I feel like online we've been noticing this trend towards the opposite, you know, this conservative type of movement, women being more conservative and selective as far as dating goes, and to be more protective of their body. And in a very weird way, even with the sprinkle movement, which a lot of people attribute to sex work, there is this very conservative heteronormative take when it comes to those sprinkle type of relationships where the woman is the homemaker, she stays at home, whereas the man is providing and he's giving her gifts. You know, a lot of people attribute the sprinkle movement to, again, like I said, low-level sex work, but it is very conservative in nature. We're also seeing this glamorization of that kind of lifestyle as it pertains to the trad wife movement. You know, we have Ballerina Farm and Nara Smith, these very beautiful young women who are showing this homemaker lifestyle where the husband is the breadwinner and they are, you know, the woman stays at home and doesn't work. It's a very glamorous lifestyle. It's very beautiful. However, what's always very interesting to me when it comes to the trad wife influencers, especially pushing this idea, this very heteronormative idea that the woman stays home and the husband goes out and he's the breadwinner, whether you regard influencing as work or not, whether you regard content creation as work or not, it is work. And these women have built massive platforms and brands off of being a housewife. So it's like they're telling you, you stay home and you don't work, but they are working. It's just that their work looks different. And I think they've done a very good job of convincing a lot of impressionable young women that this is what a homemaker, this is what the life of a homemaker looks like, despite the fact that these women, they're showing you the glamorous parts of it, you know, the conspicuous consumption parts of being a homemaker and a stay-at-home wife. They're not showing you the real realities that can come with that, as far as financial abuse, being the one who is taking on all of the mental load. They're not showing you the kind of unglamorous, the unpretty parts of being a homemaker. We are also seeing a lot of influencers and Instagram models, the Black China's, Alexis Skies, what's her name, Brittany Renner, you know, all of these women who were selling sex, who were make his pockets hurt, who were putting their body out on social media, casually dating, the whole baddie aesthetic that was fed to an entire generation. We are now seeing them come away from that and reverse their image entirely and become more conservative, not just in dress and in the content they're putting out, but also become very religious. A lot of them are going on religious journeys and turning away from that lifestyle. And I've seen a lot of conversation, people saying that this is what happens when you reach your 30s and your body changes and, you know, you're looking to settle down and you're looking for a husband and you're looking for a provider. And I think there can be an argument made for that as well. But I think that we are now seeing this counterculture, these cultural trends. I think what we're seeing now is them being recycled. I think some of that conservativeness that we're also seeing is a result of, like I mentioned earlier, the dismal dating pool, lack of options, lack of viable options, because what is also happening is women are in a stage now, we are in a place where although we are, yes, still experiencing gender pay gaps, women really don't need men like they used to. So when you don't need men, but you are still seeking partnership, you can be more selective with your options, with your choices. And as a result, women are becoming a lot more conservative and mindful and intentional about who they are allowing into their lives and their standards, not necessarily because of, you know, they are more religious in nature or they're more conservative in nature, but also as a result of the fact that men, it is very challenging for a lot of heterosexual women to date men nowadays. There used to be a time where women, in order to be financially stable, you needed a man. I think a lot of us forget that there was a time where women weren't allowed to have credit cards, women weren't allowed to take out mortgages, women weren't allowed to open bank accounts. You know, a woman's financial abilities and capabilities were very much tied to a man. And now that women, we are no longer living in a society where a woman's financial success or standing or livelihood depends on her relationship or proximity to a man in the form of a husband. Women are now being more selective in who they are dating, who they are allowing into their lives, and their standards. Like I said earlier, there's been a lot of content and conversation surrounding decentering men, and a lot of that conversation is as a result of constant misogyny, misogynoir, sexism, the gender pay gap, women's reproductive rights constantly being under attack, where we are now as women, we are realizing that we can attain all of these things. We can go to school, we can be educated, we can be equal and contributing members in our society and in our home, and we are still not going to be regarded as equals. Men are still going to look down on us and treat us like trash. And it's now reached a point where women have completely decentered men from their life. And this is not necessarily to say that women are no longer seeking partnership, seeking marriage, they don't want to become moms. This is just to say that that is not their goal. That is not their focus. If it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, they're okay too. And I've really been seeing this uptick in this language about decentering men, especially on TikTok. And that has been the way for about 2 to 4 years that I've been seeing. We saw the conversation about decentering men come out of the Me Too movement. And I think a lot of women would have been content to keep the conversation as just focus on yourself. You know, if you want partnership, great, but men and marriage and having children, it should not be a focus in your life. Decenter men and really put yourself, your goals, your happiness, your dreams, your self-improvement as women, what you are aspiring to on the forefront. And yes, you can have men in your life, but focus on yourself, make yourself the goal. I think a lot of women who were talking about decentering men would have been content to kind of keep the conversation at that if it had not been for the results of the 2024 election. And now we are seeing the 4B movement trending on TikTok, on social media, and whether it is here to stay and how it's going to look like in America will be very interesting. And that's kind of what I want to talk about in this video. So if you have no idea what the 4B movement is, it is a movement that started in South Korea as a result of kind of our Me Too movement. It began in 2017 and gained more attention in 2019 amongst the Me Too reckoning in South Korea. Much of the movement has been built online where participants call themselves anonymous women and share few personal details. It has no official leadership structure. So unlike the Me Too movement, which started with Tarana Burke and she was a leader of that, the 4B movement in South Korea has no official leadership structure. So in short, the 4B movement is just a vow to swear off men entirely. And it's called the 4B movement because in Korean, the 4 tenets each begin with bi, bi, which means no. Maybe it's B or bi, I'm not sure. But it begins with bi, which means no. The movement specifically calls for the refusal of dating men. I'm gonna butcher these words. Please don't come for me. I don't speak Korean, so please don't come for me as I try to explain all of these B's. Okay, I'm doing my best. I'm doing the best that I can. All right, let's get into the B's. So they are the refusal of dating men, bione, sexual relationships with men, bisukse, child, heterosexual marriage, bihon, and childbirth, bichulsan, in response to what South Korean women see as a patriarchal and misogynistic culture. The movement is also known as the 4 no's. Now off rip, I can't participate in this movement because as much as I say I'm decentering men, I'm married. I love my husband. He's great. We've been together for 13 years and we've been married for 8 years. I can't participate in this movement, but if you as a woman are sick of this and want to participate in the movement, I personally love that for you, and I'm here for the girls. I'm here for the girls. And I honestly think that in light of a society that isn't changing, we have to be the change that we wish to see in the world. So if this society isn't working out for us and we don't like how things are going down, everybody has the right to be like, nope, I opt out. And that's what the 4B movement seeks to do. Remove men from your life, period. The use of the phrase 4B movement references to the movement. It has skyrocketed on social media and online, especially in Google searches and on TikTok over the past week since the election. Some have also referenced the play Lysistrata, a Greek comedy where women take part in a sex strike to convince the men in their lives to end war. If you're actually looking for a modern day version of that play, Lysistrata, you should watch Chirac. It has Tiana Paris. Oh my God, this woman is so beautiful. Like God really took his time when he made Tiana Paris. That woman is beautiful. It also has Nick Cannon in it, Wesley Snipes, and Samuel L. Jackson. And I actually really liked the movie. I know it was panned and I know Nick Cannon is problematic as hell, but I'm not gonna lie. I liked the movie. I liked the movie. So if you're looking for a modern day version of Lysistrata, you can look at Chirac. If you're gonna watch it for nothing else, just watch it for Tiana Paris because she is chef's kiss. She is chef's kiss. But anyways, the 4B movement is now trending in America. People are looking it up on the Googles, like what is going on? What is everybody talking about 4B movement? And like I said earlier in my video, will it work? Especially in America. In South Korea, it actually seems to be working. The birth rate in South Korea has been steadily declining. However, if the movement is to address social inequalities and changing mindsets amongst the men in their country, has it been successful? And that really depends. Because while the birth rates are dropping, when you think about the 4B movement, it is in response to violence against women, misogyny, patriarchy, sexism, inequality as far as, promotion opportunities, income, career opportunities. It is in response to the ills that are plaguing our society and the gender wars. Even I really actually hate the term the gender wars because it implies that there is inequality on both sides. Both sides are battling with one another, whereas it is one side that seems to be battling against the other side to stop oppressing us and for basic rights. And the other side is like, no, we want to oppress you. We want to continue to discriminate against you and commit violence against you, take away rights to your body. So I really hate the term gender wars, and I will not use it for the rest of this video. And I can't even believe that I used it once. But in the research that I did for this video, I read some things that had the phrase gender wars, and no, this is not a gender wars thing. This is women asking for rights, rights that are being denied to them as a result of their gender. And the last time that I checked, that was illegal. But here we are. So anyways, the 4B movement is a result. It is an outcome of women trying to take their power back in a way that may seem extreme to many. But when you are in a position of privilege and somebody from an oppressed group is asking for equality, then that privilege, the privilege that you're experiencing, having to give up some of it will in turn feel like oppression to you. It will feel like an extreme ask to you. So while there are some people who say that the 4B movement is extreme, it seems to be working in South Korea in terms of the declining birth rate and population. However, if one of the intended outcomes of the movement is to address those inequities in society, is to address sexism, is to address misogyny, how do you measure if that is being impactful? How do you measure the results of a movement, especially a movement with no official structure or headquarters or anyone really gathering all of this information and data and spitting it out? And so that's where I struggle with if this movement is successful, because if the movement is also to send a message to men that we as women are not going to deal with this anymore, are men only going to be motivated to change because they want to be in partnership with women? Or are they going to be motivated to change because they recognize that what women are experiencing and dealing with is a problem? You know what I'm saying? And then also what we have seen, at least in America, in response to this decentering men and women being very selective and having increased standards and no longer really needing men as far as financially to provide for and support for them, we have also seen a rise in red pill content, red pill communities, red pill groups, and incel culture. And this is in backlash in response to women saying, I do not want to deal with men if they are going to be sexist towards me, prejudiced towards me, if I'm going to experience misogyny. I just do not want to deal with men on that level. And instead of men to receive that as maybe this is an opportunity for us to change and to impact our culture and to get rid of these norms and to dismantle the patriarchy, a lot of men have doubled down on that and are now seeing women's refusal to be oppressed as a problem, because they feel like having a woman, partnership with women, relationships with women, access to women and their bodies is their right as men. So you see what I'm saying? Like, how do you measure how this movement is changing anything, if it is changing anything at all? What are the results of that? And I really think that while it is a great movement, I love the conversation about decentering men, and I encourage all women to do that, all girls and women. The 4B movement, I don't know if it will have the same impacts in America as it will in South Korea for just several different reasons. For example, South Korea is a very homogenous culture. They're generally of the same racial and ethnic groups, same cultural groups. They share a same language. There's a shared sense of unity as far as culture. They have the same values and the same norms. It's easier for them to move in lockstep in a way that we don't see in America because we are so racially diverse, not just racially diverse, but ethnically diverse. Then you have this diversity of opinions, thoughts, values, culture, traditions, religion. There's so much diversity here that it's very hard for us to unite as a country on really anything. Like, there are people who want to abolish the Department of Education. We can't even agree on how we are going to educate our children. Let's move on. Let's move on. Will we see this drive from men to dismantle the patriarchy, and not just because they want access to women and families and they want their legacy continued in the form of children, but because they want to create a safe and equal society for women? Not only will buy-in from men be necessary in order for this movement to be successful, above all else, it will take buy-in and unification amongst women. And if we look at the election results, the exit poll data from not just women, but women of different racial groups and different ages, we see a clear difference in thought. I'll say thought. We'll leave it at thought, because that's everything else I want to say is another video for another day. Then you just have your pick-me's. They live for the male gaze. They don't mind oppression. They don't mind misogyny. They don't mind patriarchy. They don't mind sexism. They don't mind inequalities. They don't mind not having control of their reproductive rights. You have women who have decided that they are going to make the system of patriarchy work for them. They have their own reasons, which I would love to hear, but they have their own reasons that, you know, they are going to make this patriarchy work for them and use it to their advantage, use whatever they can to their advantage to survive in the system of patriarchy, and not just survive, but thrive. Sprinkle, sprinkle. Make his pockets hurt. And if that's you, listen, we don't have the same politic, but at the same time, if that's you, make his pockets hurt, and I hope it works out for you. I hope it works out for you. I think it's very easy to also dismiss these women as pick-me's. That's not fair. Like, yes, you have your pick-me's, but you also just have your women who don't want careers, who don't care about sexism. It's not something they feel they experience in their lives. It's not something that is a bother to them. You know, they want family, they want relationships, they want marriage, and they will deal with certain things. They will put up with certain things to have those in their life. And as much as we want everybody to pick up the banner and march alongside with us and fly our flags high and say, yes, we are in this movement, we are all together, you know, I'm a girl's girl. It's not the reality of the situation, you know, like there is so much diversity within groups of women. And unfortunately, and for better or for worse, you know, that is unfortunate, because what patriarchy does is it unifies men in a way that they know that they are benefiting as a privileged group, whereas the oppressed group, you see it in all oppressed groups, you see some of them who are willing to fight for their rights to self-determination, whereas there are also people in that oppressed group who are going to try and work with the people of the privileged group, with their oppressors, so their situation in life can be easier and better. And as women, we are within that oppressed group, and there are women who are going to work within that group to make their life and their situation better. It's giving Serena Joy. The Handmaid's Tale. I didn't want to equate it to that, but I feel like that is just the best example I can give. You know, Serena Joy in The Handmaid's Tale, she is somebody obviously that was willing to work with and craft a system that was not going to be favorable to her. But in that system that was not going to be favorable to her, she was seeking to put herself in the highest position of success. So even though she was still oppressed, she was still in a position to oppress others. And that's what some women are content doing in our current cultural lexicon of patriarchy. Something that I found very interesting were the amount of older women, were the amount of white women who were willing to vote for Donald, somebody who is actively promising to take away their reproductive rights and options. And when you think about the inequities in our society, specifically in America, when America gets the cold, the Black community gets the flu, and Black women get the plague. And so we see what maternal mortality rates are in this country and who is the most impacted: Black women. So when we are existing in this state now where women's reproductive rights are in question, and the fallout that will be a result from that, a lot of these women who are voting for these politicians who are content to take away their rights, they know that they're not going to be the ones on the receiving end of the most dire ramifications and outcomes that will come from that. It won't be older white women dying because they are past their reproductive years, so they don't have to worry about having children. It's not going to impact them. Then you see white women who are of childbearing age. They are going to have access to health care. They're not going to deal with racism within the medical field the same way Black women are. They won't face the repercussions of the things that they vote for. And a lot of women are cognizant of that. They are aware of that. And so when you have movements like the 4B movement, such an extreme movement, in order for it to have any real impact, you would need buy-in from the vast majority. And we see from exit poll data that we are not going to get to that majority as women. And if you don't have that buy-in from the group that is actively being oppressed, the group that is wanting to make that change, if you don't even have buy-in from them collectively as a group, then the oppressors are going to see that. They're going to see the fractures in that movement. They're going to see the lack of community and lack of unity and absolutely exploit that. And that's why we see women as architects, as willing participants in the system of patriarchy. A lot of people have been asking questions, oh, how could women have voted for him? And I think in a lot of ways, we as we just live in a culture of comfort, period. America, a lot of people would regard America as a first world country. We are very comfortable. There are not a lot of things that impact us as a nation that would collectively snap us into the state of panic. And even when we saw with Coviana, there was half the nation that was like, I don't want to do these very basic things to protect myself and my community, so F off. We live in a very individualistic society. And on top of living in a very individualistic society, we have all of these rights. We have a Bill of Rights, we have a Constitution, we have laws to protect us. We haven't experienced what made those laws and what made those rights necessary. So for a lot of us, we are voting for things or against things that we have never experienced the repercussions of. And I think that's why a lot of women are so comfortable nowadays voting against their own self-interest, because they're able to see only or prioritize the economic fallout instead of the reproductive fallout, because they've never existed in a time, space, and era where they didn't have control over their body and their options and their choices. They weren't experiencing that lack of resources. We have a lot of resources. So I think there are a lot of women who tangibly feel like that could never happen to me. I would never be in that situation. Or if I was in that situation, I have options. They have never experienced what it is to not have options. And that is a result of the women who have fought for us, the Black people who have fought for us, our ancestors that have fought for us, our foremothers who have fought for us, our four-sisters, our four-aunties. So we are now living in this culture of comfort and are willing to vote our rights away because we don't know what it is like to not have those rights. One thing that I pointed out as an indicator that the 4B movement was working in South Korea is the decline of birth rates, the declining birth rates, and the birth rates are declining in America on its face. However, when you break it down and do the numbers, you see that that is the case in only specific communities. And I think that is where the panic is coming from about the declining birth rate, because we live in a very white supremacist society. And so when you are living in that society, you're going to need foot soldiers. You are going to need people obviously born to uphold this system, this oppressive system, this supremacist system. And when white children are not being created to uphold this white supremacist society, there is that panic of we are going to be replaced because we are not replacing ourselves. In part, I do think that is where the panic is coming from. When it comes to the declining birth rate in America, it's not just that the birth rate is declining. The birth rate is declining amongst a very specific group that is causing panic within a very specific group for obvious reasons. Since there's no way to measure how the 4B movement is successful, if it's successful, what success even looks like, the same way with Decentering Men, ultimately you have to decide what is going to work for you, especially as a young woman. The day after the election, I shared this video that captured my thoughts as it pertains to women decentering men and what the next 4 years may bring for young women and things, or not even just young women, women of reproductive age. This is what the next 4 years could mean, and you have to be very intentional. And the takeaway, if there's any takeaway from this video, from the 4B movement, from Decentering Men, especially in backlash and response to the elections, this would be it. Two of the most important decisions you will ever make in your life, especially as a woman, are who you marry and who you have children with. And in a time, in a climate where women's reproductive rights are under threat and consistent attack, with the future very unsure, we can now add to that list. Well, you should have already had this on your list, but we can now definitively add to that list who you have sex with, who you allow into your body. So girls, no more sex with my ex, no more casual flings, no more situationships, none of that. I'm gonna need y'all to lock in and be a lot more protective of who you allow into your body. Ovulation is not a choice. EJACULATION is a choice. However, your organs are going to function as nature designed them to. I'm gonna need you to go back to school, get on that hobby, get on your Zoom. You wanted to start a YouTube page, whatever it is that you are aspiring towards, whatever goals you are working towards, you need to actively pursue those. This is not to say you shouldn't be wanting to date. You shouldn't want to seek marriage or partnership. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is you need to be a lot smarter about what the possible repercussions are of that decision you are making. If this is not somebody you can visualize yourself and see yourself marrying, being with long term, being the father of your children, you do not need to be entertaining them on any level, period. Ain't no situationship. They don't even need to be a friend to you. Get them out of your life, get them out of your space, because your body, our government is now actively telling you, the people of this country voted in a way where they are actively telling you, women, it is your body, but it is their choice. Be smarter. Be so much smarter. Ultimately, you have to be the one to decide what decentering men looks like for you, if it is your wish to decenter men at all. Not everybody is on board with that, and that's 110% okay. Even though we are still experiencing pay equality as it comes to gender and even race, we are now existing in a time where women are able to be selective in who we partner with, who we date, who we allow into our lives, who we allow into our bodies, because we are not tethered to a man. We do not need men in terms of financial stability and success. So it is more important now than ever to be so intentional about who you are allowing into your lives, especially if we are going to see the impact of implementation of certain policy that is going to come with this upcoming administration. You need to be so much smarter. While the 4B movement seems extreme, I don't think it is as extreme as what we see with, the red pill community and the incel community, because the 4B movement seeks to remove men from women's lives as a response to the violence that is occurring against us, the sexism and the misogyny, whereas the red pill community and the incel community is a response to feeling entitled to women's time, body, attention, affection, and being angry that you are not getting that. One seeks to escape the violence, whereas the other seeks to enact and maintain the violence and the patriarchy. But ultimately, what I will encourage women to do, whether you are a part of this movement, whether you're decentering men, whether you're a part of the 4B movement, whatever it is going to be for you, to be very careful about what you are putting online, because we are now existing in an age where it is normal to dox people, where it is normal to send hate and violence people's way, where it is normal to threaten people. This chaos and dysfunction has become so normalized that unfortunately there are people who will do us violence as a result of our beliefs. And one thing that I think is very smart about the 4B movement is that there is no, real official structure. There's no headquarters. There's no leadership at the top. There's no one basically to attack. And we saw the ways Tarana Burke was attacked over beginning the Me Too movement. So I'm not saying that you can't share your views online. I'm not saying that you can't and shouldn't build community with other women. I just think we need to be a little bit smarter about the conversations we are having online. I've been seeing a lot of crash outs over the election, and while it is absolutely valid, your emotions are valid, how we react may not necessarily be appropriate or even safe for us. So just kind of move in silence. You know what I'm saying? Move in silence. You don't need to be announcing certain things, especially if you are living in very hostile communities and hostile areas that are not ready for your beliefs. Just, you are entitled to have your beliefs, but also be smarter and be safe. Just be aware. Protect your peace, protect your space, and just be smart. One thing I've really loved about the decenter movement is how I've seen a lot of women and young girls pouring back into themselves, and not just pouring back into themselves, but giving to their community in a way that empowers and uplifts women without discussing men, without putting down men. I've seen in real time how it has empowered so many women to go and get their education, to remove themselves from certain situations or relationships or spaces that are harmful to them and that is no longer serving them. This is now more than ever, like I said in my video, this is the time to really pour into yourself. Whether you are a part of the Decentering Men movement, whether you're a part of the 4B movement, you do not need to be a part of any movement to build yourself, to grow yourself, to empower yourself, to invest, to put yourself in a position where you are going to feel all all of the good things that life has to offer, you know, pouring into your own cup and making sure you are putting your mask on first. Americans and people, I don't want to just say Americans, people in general have very short attention spans. So yes, the 4B movement is trending now, but the holidays are around the corner. People will forget about it sooner rather than later, but that doesn't mean that you can't be actively working on yourself. Like I said, you don't have to ascribe to any movement. Just focus on yourself and protect your peace. And if you want to join the 4B movement, great. If you want to decenter men, great. At the end of the day though, make sure you are working on you, period. Drop down in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. Have you ever heard about the 4B movement? What do you think about it? Are you decentering men? What is something that you have accomplished this year as a woman that you are really proud of that probably wouldn't have happened if you were in your boy crazy stage or chasing behind a man? You know, let me know. I want to hear it all. Drop down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm trying to reach a 1,000 subscriber goal by the end of November, so I would really love it if you could help me out and hit that subscribe button. And until next time, peace out.